Welcome to the IT Experience podcast. We're here to guide IT and global business services professionals in navigating experience management, focusing on how to optimize budgets and drive better business outcomes. Join us as we discuss the trends, tools, and strategies with top industry experts that are transforming the future of service delivery in large enterprises. This podcast is brought to you by Happy Signals, the leading experience management platform for IT and global business services.
Hello, and welcome to the Happy Signals podcast again. Today we have as our guest somebody who I bumped into for the first time in my LinkedIn feed not too long ago, and it seems like our guest today has done if I may use the word, meteoric rise in visibility online, because to me it a little bit seemed like you came out of nowhere and all of a sudden you're everywhere. So would you like to introduce yourself, Paul Brandvold, and who you are and what you do? And well, that's about it.
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm not sure about I am not sure about the rise if I really came out of nowhere, but I guess I have heard that before, so you have a point. And my name is Paul Brandvold. I work in IT service management, which is basically what you saw the post was about. I'm based in Norway, but I lived in Asia for a very long time. So you could say, and I've worked in different environments and things like that. So the reason you're seeing me a lot on LinkedIn is because I write a lot about IT service management topics. And I'm also become very into personal branding, even though that was not the motivation for getting started. It's just something that happened as I got success in my posts, you could say.
Yeah, I understand. And for those who haven't seen, like, I do encourage going to Paul's LinkedIn page, and we'll put the link in the show notes as well. And if I read from your LinkedIn introduction, I think that one is quite descriptive. You say that you bring clarity to IT service management through storytelling, real-world leadership, and a healthy dose of common sense. And I have heard this expression before that, like, common sense is not common, and that is an issue. So would you like to say, like, tell a little bit about how you combine storytelling, real-world leadership, and common sense?
Well, wow. So all three. So common sense, as you said, is not always as common. So that is funny. Like, why would you have to put that in your about section? But unfortunately, it's not always so common. So okay. So we start with the common sense is that we tend to overcomplicate things and like we follow maybe strict framework. No, it's supposed to be like this according to ITIL or according to Agile or whatever framework that you're using. So and then at times, if on the situation it doesn't make sense, right? So you have to use common sense when you make decisions every day. You know, it can't just be following like steps for the sake of following. In terms of storytelling, how would I say this without sounding like without it sounding negative? I think that read so much good stuff about IT service management on LinkedIn, and I follow a lot of people, and I'm really into it. So I do find it very interesting. But I do notice that the way it's phrased, it's very like educational and almost like a bit corporate. So for people who are new to it or maybe not as into it as me, it comes across as boring. And the last thing I want is that the thing that I love to come across as boring. So I use a lot of storytelling, like my own experiences. I use analogies. I use cartoon characters, to tell a story for people to kind of like, oh, that was interesting, or oh, that was kind of simple. That made sense.
Yeah.
That's the point. It's supposed to make sense, right? IT service management does make sense, but sometimes when we use jargons, we use all of these different things that, yeah, maybe we can blame ITIL for some of it in terms of all these very specific jargons we use. They're not that understandable for a lot of people. So that's what I try to simplify language and so on.
Yeah, now, that's interesting. I've been sometimes listening to another podcast called Two Bobs, and it's two guys who are talking about creative agencies, and I think that on the other flip side, you have the very corporate and educational, maybe in more engineering type professions, but then on the creative side, sometimes you go too creative and sort of lose the audience because it becomes so vague in a way. And I remember those two podcast hosts, they were one speaking about the importance of metaphors and saying that, like, why would you and when would you use metaphors? And they were saying that a metaphor is meant to be one of those things where you just say it once and all of a sudden it just clicks for the person hearing it. That a complex topic all of a sudden becomes easy because you get sort of an anchoring point. You can relate to it because of the metaphor. So do you think that the way that you have now been publishing things that you don't want to be boring and you use the cartoons and everything else, have you felt that it resonated with the audience? Has it made a difference?
A lot. As you're saying, like you say that I'm everywhere, right? I'm not really everywhere, I would say, but it's due to the success of the post that you see me more often, right? So I would say definitely made a huge difference. I've experimented a lot on different things, so there are times that I'm a bit too clever, right? So it doesn't really hit, like it hit for some specific people, they love it, right? But in reality, it doesn't resonate with the majority. And then I need to analyze and think, yeah, that maybe was too clever, and I should maybe dial back on that. But it's a constant experimentation thing, and I think you should also be careful on making things too fun, because you can also come across as not serious.
Yeah.
So it's a very tough balance. If I've hit that balance, I'm not sure, but I try at least.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. Very good. And we do have, for example, even in our own messaging, we recently had new people joining the marketing team, and they created a sort of a messaging guide. And one of the things that really came across that I found very, very helpful was this sort of principles about how to communicate. And one of them was clarity over cleverness. So now when you said that, sometimes try to be too clever, maybe you lose that clarity. So
Yes.
just thought it was a funny coincidence that you used the same terminology. But let's dive into the topic. The one thing that when I noticed you, it was about a post where you said that good people were leaving ITSM. And as we were preparing for this podcast and we had a pre-recording session, one of the things that we discussed was like, why is ITSM hard? So can you think of like the top 3 reasons why ITSM in 2025 is a hard place to be and to work in?
Absolutely. Just to also clarify, IT service management is very broad, right? So the statement might not apply to everyone in ITSM, but it definitely applies to, I would say, the majority of the bulk of people. So I would say number one is that perhaps there's a lot of the expectations is not that realistic for people. You often work with very limited resources, and you're expected to solve things very quickly, and you're also expected to, doesn't matter the time of day, 24/7, you're expected to be there. So I think that's one of the things that makes it very difficult. It kind of goes under kind of something similar, but I also think that in a way it can be at times a very thankless culture.
Yeah.
Like when things are working, then it's just supposed to work, right? So then you don't really get any like good job or anything, even though you might have done a lot of things in the background to prevent it from breaking again, being proactive and stuff. And then but when it breaks, then it's like blame culture, your fault, So I think a part of that can add a lot of stress, like the limited resources, right? And then you don't necessarily feel appreciated. That, and then I guess a third one would be a lot of the things that you do, you don't necessarily have influence over, like decisions were made. And then now you're kind of in the situation. To just give an example without going too much into it, selecting a ITSM tool and how that's built, how that process is, right? Usually the people who select it aren't the people who are going to use it, right? So there can be a disconnect there. So that's a whole topic on its own, but those are basically on the top of my mind, the top 3 things I can think of.
All right. But then yet, despite these difficulties and challenges, here you are, and you're still passionate about it, and you're telling the stories. So there are reasons why it's rewarding as well. So do you want to go into like what makes it worth all this hassle and trouble then to stay in ITSM?
Yeah, that's funny, because when things are hard, it's also what makes it rewarding, right? So the sense of achievement, the sense of like I've done something good, it's really strong when you are under a lot of pressure and then you save the day, right? So it's also it's also like a hero culture in a way. at least internally, right? Maybe
Yeah.
not to the people who underestimate you, who blame you, but internally within the ITSM community, within your team, within your department, people are really supportive. So that makes it worth it. That's one. And I think that you do learn a lot when you are put in situations that are challenging. So I think that's part of the reasons that's part of the reason I love it. I also think that's part of the reason other people love it. And it's so broad there's so much to learn, right? So
Yeah.
I think career opportunities are really there. Depends on the company culture and things like that, but as an industry, the opportunities are there. And for me, it's to the point that I'm thinking there's so much interesting stuff that I could go into, but what should I go into? That's kind of like the part of the challenge. It's just so interesting to me.
So, and you mentioned a hero culture internally. Who are typically the people or the type of people that then come in and save the day? What are the characteristics of those people? I think there might be a lot of people, a lot of listeners of the podcast that either have teams, they manage teams, so they're thinking about recruiting people or thinking about how they could reimagine their own functions. So, based on your experience, what are the type of people that tend to save the day? Are there any common traits that they share?
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually recently wrote two separate kind of posts that goes into that. So I think one is that they tend to be yes people.
Okay.
So they tend to be people who just wants to help. Like very service minded people. That's definitely a trait, but that's also something that you need to learn how to manage these people. That's a different topic though. And there are people who are very curious.
Yeah.
Right? People who love learning, and I guess that's like almost like a cliche saying that people love learning, but there are levels to it, right?
Yeah.
So people who basically, if you see people who continuously develop their skills, if it's through just self-learning, if it's through certifications, there are different ways of doing it. Those are the type of people that usually ends up being the heroes because they take responsibility and they learn new things all the time. They might not know how to solve it, but they'll figure it out. So that's kind of the type of person.
It's interesting. So, are those curious and willing to learn people also the ones that are resilient? Because if it is a thankless job, if it is a hard job, and you don't get any praises while things are going okay, is there a connect between the learning desire and the resilience when you don't sort of get like the praise?
I think there is, because if you're very interested in learning, you usually put yourself in, number one, there's huge effort into it, right? But
Yeah.
to learn, you often need to put yourself outside your comfort zone.
Hmm.
And if you're willing to do that, that builds resilience.
Yeah.
So I think in that sense, it absolutely is connected. So resilience is definitely another. I didn't mention that, but resilience is one of the traits that these heroes have.
Yeah. And is it? I'm thinking about that learning culture. In a way, it comes to questioning yourself as well. Because in the beginning, you were saying that the common sense was often meant breaking the mold and not stepping outside of the predefined processes and not being so dogmatic about it. So is that sort of healthy questioning of oneself without doubting oneself? Because I suppose that confidence in and belief in that I can fix this, we can fix this, let's now just try to find a solution. It's out there. It may not be clear, but it is out there. So it's questioning yourself, a little bit of confidence, curiosity, learning. I mean, it sounds like a pretty rare uh, type of combination, but is it?
It is rare in general, but in IT service management, it's not.
Okay,
I
interesting.
really believe that it attracts these type of people, because if you think like resilience, right? It's not just IT service management, but like people who want like support, right?
Yeah,
Support roles, even not technical. To, you kind of draw these type of people in.
yeah,
So and honestly, most people don't even know what IT service management is unless you work in it. And it's not like when you're in school, you get really taught much about IT service management. So I think you kind of fall into it. And I don't think it's a coincidence. Even they don't necessarily look for it. I think they just end up where they're supposed to be.
Oh, that is so true. I mean,
Oh,
even if we have had these conversations in some of the ITSM groups, and when you ask people how did you end up here, like the paths are so varied. It's so true that there is no clear way of how you end up in ITSM.
There might be in the future, right? When maybe it's a bit more like path, but no, but it really isn't. And yeah, definitely. When you say it, it also makes me laugh. Like you are very right in that. Now that I really reflect on the people I work with, it's like how do they end up here? It's like different stories.
Yeah. So what did you study, Paul? Where did you go to school, or what's your background? How did you end up in ITSM?
Wow, long story. So I actually first my first job was in my first, you could say, corporate job was in a call center in the Philippines.
Yeah.
So I was actually customer service / sales. I did upselling at the same time as doing customer service, and I was pretty good at it.
Yeah.
Especially the customer service part, I would say. And then I wanted just kind of to find a bit less stressful work. I was very young at that time, and I was thinking like better pay and less stress. And then I basically started studying accounting while working, which is funny because that's not a field that I enjoy even back then. It was just that this was what, 15, 20 years ago, closer to 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Flexibility in school wasn't really much of a thing back then. So
Yeah.
I found a school that was actually willing to give me a lot of flexibility to more show up for the exams rather than the day to day because I had a full-time job.
Yeah.
And what happened was the only business related course they had was accounting. So I took that and then I actually worked as an auditor for travel and expense. And then I became a leader for audit teams.
Yeah.
And then suddenly there was a job post about team lead for a service desk in an IT company. And they were basically planning to move a lot of roles from Norway, Sweden, and Denmark to the Philippines, being the outsourcing industry. So I was thinking, oh, that's a good way for me getting more connected to Norway in case I want to go home. So I was thinking, why not try it? So I jumped into it, and then I got sent to a ITIL V3 back then training, which was extremely difficult because I had never worked in IT before. So so I basically started out managing a service desk, and when I was managing it, I also had to learn. Like I also took the agent training. I also sat on the phone. I also troubleshooted. I did all of these things at the same time as I was a team lead at that time. So that's kind of like my entry. And then since then, it's like this is where I'm supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're the perfect example of how you just sort of slip into ITSM and you stay.
Absolutely, more transferable skill through leadership.
Yeah.
And then you could learn the rest, especially at the service desk where it's not as technical, right? So you could you have a chance. A lot of people, right? They end up going through the service desk, and then as a stepping stone.
That's true. So thinking about the other side of the coin, then. So ITSM is often, at least in our context, it's mostly for internal IT support and services and etc. So, but business side of the enterprises rarely really understand what it means to work in ITSM. So, what do you think that business stakeholders should know about the reality of IT operations as a job? What is it like? What should they know? What it would be important for them to know so that they can maybe empathize with the IT people a little bit more often?
Well, if it goes to empathy specifically, then it's just understanding the challenges and the pressure that comes with the role. And also that if they show a bit more understanding and appreciation from the business side, that will go a long way on actually making people feel appreciated due to the stress. But in terms of like if you don't go on empathy specifically, they need to understand that ITSM is there also is there to be their partner, to enable their business, to actually help them meet their targets. It's not there to just keep the lights on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's excellent. So going forward then, because the world of IT is changing quickly with AI and different technologies and the systems that are now contributing to the observability and monitoring of the technical systems. I suppose technical outages are maybe more rare. than they used to be. And looking into the future, how do you see the future of ITSM? The role of technology, the role of the service-minded people, the role of, like, what do you see? Do you see any specific trends that you think will be important to look out for or to anticipate in the future?
Wow, that's a difficult question you threw out right at me there. Well, it's so many things going on in my mind when you ask that question. But I'm thinking something to be aware of is upskilling or continually developing yourself is going to be more important than it's ever been. AI technology, it's here to stay. It might not instantly meet what is being sold right now, all of these things, but eventually at some point it will reach the level where it definitely will take over repetitive tasks, things that maybe don't require as much skill. It will take over a huge amount of that.
Yeah.
But it will create new opportunities, such as like managing the AI, all of these things. So I think kind of those are the things that will be the new opportunities. So if you go back to your question also on those service-minded people, like what's their role, right? Since this is being replaced, I think that when we design part of the design of the AI, the behavior, the setup, it's not just plug and play. Even though we're being sold it's pretty much plug and play. I think involving them in the design process to actually create a good experience for the end user, the customer, or whoever, that's going to be key.
All right. So follow-up question on that. Do you think that the best knowledge about how AI should be trained is at the grassroots level, where there's the interface between the end users and the IT teams? Or is the best understanding today at the higher levels of the organization in maybe leadership teams and the CIO office, for example? Who knows best what AI should be doing better in order to better serve the business?
That must be grassroots.
Yeah.
Because number one, the people on the ground really knows the best on user behavior, what's good experience, and so on. You can say yes, certain key people like CTOs and stuff like that, they might have very good knowledge on a higher level on the strategy for AI, but those are the exception, right? These are like individual, and I'm not even saying all CTOs would know. So maybe at some point in the future, it would be the higher level that would know the best for like the overall business strategy. But as of now, it's definitely on the ground.
All right. So maybe would you say that is one recommendation if the audience remembers one thing from this podcast? Could it be that you should be listening to your grassroots level employees more when you develop the new technologies, as these business people are trying to themselves as well learn to interact and deal with them in the best possible way?
Absolutely, like 100%. And honestly, if we just even go to like remove this topic, you should always listen more to your grassroots people. I mean, that's something that still can improve a lot, even if you don't look at the future AI, even in the present.
Yeah,
that's something. So yes, if you remember one thing from this podcast, is just listen to your people.
Excellent. That is excellent. Listen to your people. Let's finish on that note. And as we do at the end of each of these podcasts, we say, stay happy and stay safe. Thank you for coming, Paul.
Thank you so much.
If you liked this episode, please give us thumbs up, rating, or share it with your colleagues to help others learn about this topic as well. To learn more, go to happysignals.com.